Hello everyone, my name is Jeremy Cohen and I am the Producing Artistic Director here at Playwrights Center. Today marks the beginning of our 50th anniversary, so I'm extra thrilled to welcome you to Taste of the Season 2021. As you know, in order to center the care of our audience and our artists, we've decided to make our 2021 Taste of the Season fundraiser a virtual event again this year. And of course, while we would so rather be greeting you at the Playwrights Center here in person, I feel confident that you will still be able to feel exactly what makes this event so popular year after year and so special. And it allows us to further bring in many first-time national and international friends. So hello, welcome to those of you joining us from afar. Tonight, you're going to meet 4 of the incredible playwrights from across our upcoming 2021-22 season who will spend a bit of time with you talking about their writing process and then sharing a sneak peek of an upcoming play that they're going to be working on this season. Following each playwright's sharing, Associate Artistic Director and Tastes Sommelier Haley Finn will pop in to offer some wine pairings that complement the writer and the play perfectly. But before I pass the mic to the playwrights, I want to thank you, our beloved community of supporters, for what your generosity and your loyalty has meant to us. Because of your support, since the onset of COVID-19 in March of last year, we were able to step up instead of stepping back in how we sustain the theater. Over the past 18 months, we were able to create nearly 700 jobs for playwrights and theater artists. We developed over 75 new plays, and we welcomed over 6,500 audience members, just like you, to get a backstage pass to it all. You showed up as engaged audience members participating in our virtual readings. You showed up through social media, emails, texts, and phone calls, encouraging our staff and our artists, reminding us why this work matters. And tonight, you are showing up philanthropically to make sure that we go into 2022 in a sound and strong financial position, and to be able to continue investing in the best and brightest playwrights in the country. Thank you. In this, our 50th anniversary, I want to acknowledge the incredible history of playwrights and theater makers who have built Playwrights Center to become all that it is today. Our work is to create deep-level, long-lasting support for today's writers, as well as for the many generations of writers to come. And so even though we're not together here at the center this year, I do hope you'll still lean forward into their stories, sip some wine or other beverages from the comfort of your home. If you are gathering with loved ones to watch, we encourage you to snap a photo and share it with us via your favorite social channel, tagging #PWCTaste. In just a moment, I'll be introducing to you this year's Taste of the Season playwrights. These 4 artists are part of the cohort of over 50 core writers, fellows, and affiliated writers who will develop their new work with us over the course of this next year. And while you listen to these stories, please keep in mind that tonight's Taste of the Season event is an essential funding source for Playwrights Center and for writers just like these. Our goal for this evening is to raise $50,000 to support our diverse and vital theater makers. Here at the Center, we make all our tickets free to truly live into our values of accessibility and inclusion. And so while we don't rely on ticket sales to pay our bills, we are not at all impervious to the current decline in arts funding. So if at the end of this video, you're moved by the work and fired up to renew or to increase your annual gift, or perhaps make your first donation to the Center, we hope you will strongly consider hitting the donate button. You can also make a gift online at pwcenter.org/donate. I also know that many of you watching have already made a generous donation, and on behalf of all of us on the staff and the board and the artists at the Playwrights Center, my sincerest thanks to you all. A big shout out also to our friends at France 44, our official wine store for Taste of the Season. The theater is returning. And with your help and our resources, it will be a stronger and more diverse theater than ever. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you the playwrights joining us for this year's Taste of the Season: Kristoffer Diaz, Mathilde Dratwa, Carson Kreitzer, and TyLie Shider. Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy Taste of the Season.
Hi, I'm Carson Kreitzer, and I'm an affiliated writer at the Playwrights Center. Everyone here is just so supportive and caring and concerned with giving the playwright what the playwright needs in the moment. especially in this crazy pandemic time. When our entire industry basically got unplugged from the wall, the Playwrights Center was just immediately striding into the breach, creating a season. I feel like 5 minutes after the world shut down, creating a place for us to come together and talk and connect. And that was unbelievable and amazing and so needed. Time Bomb is a play about the climate crisis, and it's a comedy. I felt like it had to be a comedy because the enormity of the problem is so terrifying that I think we all have a tendency to shut down or go numb. And it's much easier to sort of just close the lid on the box because what's in there is so terrifying. And I have always felt that comedy is the best way to keep an audience off balance and engaged. And so the humor in this play, I hope, makes an audience able to hang on for the ride and able to do some serious thinking about what we can all do. This is an excerpt from Time Bomb. This is Rebecca. It's pretty early in the play, and Rebecca is a somewhat tightly wrapped climate scientist. It begins with Rebecca in a spotlight talking to the audience, and then we discover later that she is actually somewhat improbably picking up a man in a bar. You ever heard the one about you get 4 Jews in a room, you get 5 opinions? It's true. We like to argue. We don't take anything for granted. So it's all the Jews' fault. On the one hand, no. On the other, there might be something to that. Because, we invented this damn monotheism crap. There is one God, and he's angry, and he says, go over there, it's your land now, kill whoever's on it. Not sure he really said that, but it seems to come up a lot. Be fruitful and multiply. Human beings are a virus spreading over the globe, overrunning till she shakes us off like a bad fever, till she shakes us off with a bad fever. The problem, I believe, arose when men discovered they had anything to do with reproduction. Before that, women were mysterious, full of wonder, the source of life, like the land, the water. After, women were possessions, to be jealously guarded, to make sure it was your seed growing in that garden. Patrilineal descent, it makes no sense. Matrilineal descent, simple, easy. Who is the mother of this child? Well, she is right there. She carried him around in her belly. He issued forth from between her loins. Is that what loins are? I'm never really sure. I know it's a nice cut of meat, but where is it? Forget it. Patrilineal? Who is the father of this child? Oh, well, we think it's Frank, but, hard to tell. So you gotta lock them up, the women. Keep them under lock and key. Make sure we know from whose precious loins the seed emanated. Women become property, breeding stock, something to own. Like the land, like the water, that which gives us life. So yeah, monotheism sucks. If men had never figured out about sperm, we'd be in a much better position.
When pairing Time Bomb with a wine, it was essential to consider a vineyard that is using sustainable farming practices. Here we have the incredible Domaine de Nozay-Sancerre, organically farmed and certified biodynamic. Upon first sip, you'll notice the wine has plenty of character, like Carson's central protagonist. You can taste peach, salty lime zest, and a bright green apple punch that awakens the senses and reminds us of our call to action. The wine's dry finish allows us to stay focused on our work ahead. Enjoy.
My name is TyLie Shider, and I am a core writer at the Playwrights Center. In 2019, I was accepted into the Jerome Fellowship cohort, and That was about a year after graduation in grad school at Tisch. And I was very excited about the opportunity because it gave me an opportunity to continue to learn about the professional aspect of playwriting. Because in graduate school, we spent most of our time focusing on craft, and I knew that there was an aspect that was, I wouldn't say missing, but that I was craving. And coming to the Playwrights Center directly after grad school to me was very important because it gave me an opportunity to learn more about the business. And I sort of call myself now like an investigative playwright because everything that I do starts with a question. And I know many writers say that, but when I say it, I'm talking like very literal. Like, you know, there is a question about a piece of history, a current event, or a subject or biography or something in my biography that I'm sort of exploring. And then I sit down and I do this sort of impromptu small talk, or I do like a very formal interview before I start writing anything. So there's always this interview process before I start writing. So I think that's probably what prompts me to write today. Whittier, I started writing it in 2020. Just walking around my neighborhood and, you know, during the uprisings and by day in the riots by night, I was trying to sort of find some solace of pulling away from the media because the media was covering it, you know, and it was very bipartisan at the time, and so it felt very divisive. So when I took these long walks, I was taking in all of the political signage that emerged in the neighborhood in protest of the murder of George Floyd. And I was very interested in whether or not something like art, which was becoming beautiful, could emerge from such an ugly incident. You know, and when I say that, that was sort of the question that I had in myself, not the conviction. And so I started with that question, and I started to use that question to conduct small talks and interviews with my neighbors, and it started to become sort of this piece that I started to adapt into like scenes for a play. So that's how Whittier started. I'm going to read from a scene between two neighbors named Sarai and Dr. Brown, and they're having a sort of what some people would call a difficult conversation around race relations. Sarai: it makes people defensive. White privilege? I work. I had to work. I've always worked. Dr. Brown: good for you. Sarai: I work because I have to. Dr. Brown: you've already come up with an answer about what it is and what it is not. Sarai: it doesn't add up. When I add it up, you've got what I have and Rachel has more. Dr. Brown: how do you know what she has? Sarai: I can see. Dr. Brown: white privilege is more than what meets the eye. Sarai: I know she's quitting her job to tell jokes. I couldn't quit my job to sell a joke. I've got children to feed and bills to pay. Dr. Brown: how she pays her bills is her decision. Sarai: all right. What? Educate me. What is it? All I hear is a busload of buzzwords coming at me a mile a minute. Am I contributing to the problem? Have I contributed to the problem? Dr. Brown: your privilege is rooted in your question. The entitlement of questioning me and demanding an answer is privilege. Who am I to teach you how to do life? Sarai: wait, how do you identify? Dr. Brown: what do you see? Sarai: I see a black woman. Dr. Brown: the ideal neighbor doesn't look like me. The girl next door is historically you, raised to believe that if someone who looks like me moves next door, it would drive the value of her home down. Sarai: my father raised me not to see color. We are all relieved when we meet strangers who turn out not to be a murderer. Is it a race thing or a stranger thing? Dr. Brown: depends on what side of the line you're on. White privilege is government incentives for homogenous neighborhoods, which historically prevented black families from buying homes in high property value neighborhoods and amassing the same wealth as their white counterparts. White privilege is lines, boundary lines, color lines. You misidentifying me in the dark a moment ago. White privileges? Caitlyn Jenner. Sarai, wait, who? Dr. Brown, the white woman who dominated sports before he became Woman of the Year? Sarai. Oh, her. You must be sick of teaching race lessons. Dr. Brown, I teach American history. Sarai. Fair. Sarai lights a cigarette. Dr. Brown, ugh, filth. Sarai, I know, but it complements my tea. Dr. Brown, long as you chase it with something sweet. Sarai, right. Dr. Brown, did a bus drive by here? Sarai, haven't you heard? Dr. Brown, what? Sarai, the bus isn't running. Dr. Brown, what? Why not? Sarai, the threat of vehicular homicide. Some fool almost ran a bus off the road and into a crowd of demonstrators. Metro Transit had to suspend service and put the safety of their drivers first. The bus has been down for about a week. Dr. Brown, must have been a garbage truck, I heard. Sarai, or a tank. I finally put my children to bed and I need more than this tea tonight. Dr. Brown, I've got a bottle of red wine. Sarai, please, fill my cup.
In this scene, you get introduced to two neighbors that are able to start a conversation about white privilege. It is impossible to think about pairing this play with a wine without thinking about the inequities that exist in the wine industry. But here you have the Brown Estates Chardonnay. Brown Estates is one of a small number of Black-owned labels in this country. It's run by a family that had been producing wine for other labels until 1995, when the next generation decided to create their own label. And through grassroots efforts like word of mouth and social media, their vineyard has grown tremendously, and for good reason. The wine is delicious. Whittier is about neighbors coming together and approaching each other for the first time. This Chardonnay is approachable, and once approached, you learn of its hints of elderflower and even almonds. Like TyLie's beautiful play, it unfolds in subtle, fruitful ways. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Mathilde Dratwa, and I'm a core writer at the Playwrights Center. I would describe my work as theatrical and irreverent. What I really try and do with every play that I write is to write roles that women specifically would kill to play. I remember when back in another lifetime, I was an actor, and I remember how frustrated I was with what was being presented to me. And one of my goals as a writer is to write parts for my friends and for other actors that I admire and respect, and try and give them, enough to chew on to be worthy of their talents. I've never had 3 years of uninterrupted support from any institution, and for a long time I've been looking for an artistic home, and I found that temporarily with various different organizations, but only ever for a matter of weeks or perhaps months, and in one case a year, but never beyond that. So I'm very excited to work somewhere over a 3-year period. I developed this play entirely during the pandemic, and so the only very few occasions I had to hear the play aloud was over Zoom. And I'm really excited to actually think about spatial relationships in the play. There's 3 or more chorus members, and then there's 3 other characters, and I'm really curious about how they might interact in the same space, or whether they're in different spaces. And I'm very excited to work with a director and some actors and figure that out. This is an excerpt from my play Dirty Laundry. It comes early on in the play where the father calls the daughter on the phone, and the chorus is there to help us navigate the scene. She lies in bed and thinks about her mother's belly, the womb that was her world once upon a time. She thinks about her mother's belly turning black. She wishes she could tell her dad this. Sometimes she wakes her husband and tells him, and he wraps an arm around her body, his hand on her stomach, and she doesn't suck it in the way she did before. When she was pregnant, she never had to suck in her stomach. It was firm, like a soccer ball, not soft and floppy, but that only lasted 9 months, and after the baby came out, especially after the baby came out, she reverted to sucking in her stomach when he touched her there. But now, she doesn't care whether or not he knows that her soft flesh flops down on the bed. Flop. This is one of the things that has changed. A before and an after. Such a small thing as sucking in. She wants to tell her dad all of this. What was keeping you up? What were you thinking about? She wonders if he'll say her belly turning black. He says, lint filters? What? I needed to ask you about the lint filter if you clean it. What? You have to clean your lint filter or your house will burn down. Dad, I live in an apartment. Your apartment will burn down. Dad, every use. Promise me, okay? Promise me you'll clean out your lint filters. Dad, you're not listening to me. I live in New York. I don't have laundry in the building. You've come here. You know that. Oh. How do you do your laundry? Jack does our laundry. Oh. Oh. She wants to teach him a lesson. She wants to use her husband, Jack, as an example of a supportive husband, a feminist husband, which he is. Really. No, really. She wants her dad to imagine Jack at the laundromat, but the truth is, he uses a service, an app. An app? Fly cleaners, they pick up and they deliver. You can do that? You can't do that. Why? Because they don't have that over there, because everyone has a house with a machine, and because it's time I can't believe, Dad, you were married for 45 years and you have never, not once, it makes me, she's trying to decide if she's mad or sad. She did your laundry for 45 years and you never even, she decides she's both.
As Mathilde mentioned, she writes plays so that there will be strong parts for women, and so it seemed important to pair her play with a wine produced by strong women. Here you have Ferretti Alcer's Rosé, produced by two sisters. The vineyard's history is also a family story, a story about a father who taught his daughters the art and love of winemaking. And though in Mathilde's play, the daughter might be the father's teacher, it is clear that there is much to harvest in this family drama. You will be captivated by the brilliant garnet color of this wine, which emanates notes of strawberry and blueberry with effervescence. The sisters producing this wine hoe the land by hand or with small utensils so as not to damage the vines. And central to their process is they never use chemicals, making this clean wine a great pairing for dirty laundry. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is Kristoffer Diaz, and I am an affiliated writer at the Playwrights Center. Why do I write plays? I think I ask myself that question a lot. I think I ask that question a lot of folks who are deciding that they want to write plays, that they want to be playwrights, and making sure that they know sort of what a difficult career choice this is. We're constantly asked to look deep inside ourselves, into our hearts, into our brains, into our guts, and dredge up the uncomfortable stuff that we need to figure out about ourselves and that we need to figure out about, the larger society. But for the people who feel really passionately, as I do, that this is the way that they best sort out that kind of chaos, that kind of internal back and forth or struggle, or even just, the questions that you have, it can be incredibly rewarding. Playwrights Center really celebrates the fact that this is a process. Playwriting's a process. We're always trying to get it right. We're always trying to figure out even what we're trying to do. And the only way to really get good answers to those questions is to have a safe, protected, trusting space where you know that the entire organization is focused on making sure that the playwright and the actors that work with that playwright are getting everything that they need to make the best possible dramaturgical piece. Every time any writer I know gets a chance to work in a place like this, we're immensely, immensely grateful. And for a piece like this, Things with Friends, that I'm still figuring out, that I think I know what it is, but I'm not entirely sure, and it shifts every time I sit down and reread it again. I couldn't ask for a better place to be working on it right now than at the Playwrights Center. I started writing this play, I just dove in, I wasn't exactly sure what it was going to be about, and when I was working on it, the first 3 pages or so came out as stage directions. And they weren't just stage directions painting a stage picture, they were stage directions that had a little bit of a voice. And so it seemed to lend itself to an audio experience. You were having some narration happening, you were having some description of what was going on, what the place looked like, what was on the walls, what was being cooked. When the opportunity came along during the aftermath of that sort of first wave of the pandemic, when theaters started shutting down and pivoting to digital space, it made a lot of sense to me to think about this piece as being something that didn't necessarily have to live in a theater, but could live in somebody's headphones, could live in a podcast or an audio play kind of form. And then when Playwrights Center offered that opportunity to potentially develop it the same way we would develop a play, but develop it just to be distributed and to hit people's ears in a different way, this seemed like the perfect opportunity. This is an excerpt from my play Things with Friends. It's the beginning of the play. I don't think you need to know anything to set it up. Her name is Adele. His name is Bert. They live here. An apartment, a New York apartment, a Manhattan apartment. An upscale Manhattan apartment, the kind with art on the walls. I don't know what artist. I don't have that kind of art on my walls. It's expensive art. Not the most expensive, not the second most expensive, but it's the kind of art you buy when you have enough money to have yourself a budget for art. And when you know a thing or two about art. You're not an artist, but you talk about art with your friends. Maybe some of them are artists and you discuss it with them at dinner parties. Oh yeah, this is the kind of apartment where you have dinner parties. You don't have them catered, you cook yourself. Well, maybe you have them catered once in a while if you don't have time to cook, because look, when you cook, you go all out. This is not a dinner party, not yet. It's the moments before a party. A couple, a man and a woman, that kind of couple, is prepping dinner. It's their place. They live here. Her name is Adele. His name is Bert. He is in the kitchen. It's a nice kitchen, probably a big island, granite or marble, whatever you'd have in a place like this. I don't live in a place like this. I don't know. When you do live in a place like this, you've got lots of pots and pans, day-to-day pots and pans, as well as special occasion pots and pans. And the special occasion pots and pans get as much, if not more, use than the day-to-day, because day-to-day, well, you're working or you have plans out in the world or you order in as a treat. But you like to cook, so when you have dinner parties, special pots, special pans. Le Creuset. You know what that is. You know when to use it. You know how to pronounce it. I don't. Bert is in the kitchen, working with belay, whatever, preparing for the dinner party. Adele, his wife, because they are married, is elsewhere in the apartment, searching for the perfect musical accompaniment to tonight's festivities. She selects some 1960s French yeye pop. This is not the 1960s. This is not France. I should make that clear. It's New York City, present day-ish, maybe a little in the future. Hard to say exactly. But it's not the 1960s. I want that known. Bert is cooking steak. Now look, I know it's unlikely you can really cook steak on stage, but look, it would be great to really cook the steaks. Hot pan, ripping hot pan, maybe a little butter, get that smell in the air. Then drop the steak on there. Sizzle, smoke, then you don't have to do a damn thing to it. Let it sit. But look, I get it if you can't do it. But Bert is cooking steak. Adele rummages through a wine refrigerator elsewhere. 1960s French yeye pop plays. It's pleasant. It's lovely.
The stage directions is a character in this play, and they do more than set the scene here. They invite us into the dinner party. I'm hearing the French 1960s yeye pop, smelling the steak, and oh yes, they opened a bottle of wine, and you know it's going to be great. Welcome to the scene, Chateau La Rose, Trintendon, Haute-Médoc. It's rich, peppery, and goes great with steak. It's just the type of wine that can seduce you into thinking everything is pleasant, it's lovely. But as you'll learn, there is more than meets the eye at this dinner party. This award-winning lush wine has the perfect suppleness and finesse to keep pace with Chris's writing and this surprising play. Enjoy.
A workshop at the Playwrights Center means that I am in the driver's seat, that I am in charge of this workshop. This is about what I need.
So when you have an institution that's vetting you, and saying he is a playwright, this is what he does, it helps you to sustain visibility in a dense industry. So 5 years of support with the Playwrights Center, to me, secures my place in the American theater.
Theater's about community. Theater's about working with other folks to accomplish a larger goal and to create something that you're going to present to an audience and invite them into your community. And the best work comes when you have supportive communities to help create it, and that's what you get at the Playwrights Center.
The Playwrights Center has always been my true north, my home, the place I know I can always come back to, and I will belong here.